Far away in the galaxy, there was a beautiful planet called Velara. It was a world of glowing forests, floating rivers, and sky cities that touched the clouds. The people of Velara were tall, elegant, and proud. They had powers connected to nature, and they respected strength, beauty, and perfection. In the great shining palace of Velara lived Princess Solara. She was the only daughter of the ruling queen, but unlike others, Solara was born different. She was blind from birth, and her legs were weak, needing a brace to walk. Because of this, many in the court whispered that she was cursed, a shame to the royal bloodline. Despite her noble title, Solara was treated like a shadow in her own home. The other nobles and warriors avoided her. They believed she was useless, someone who could never rule or be a worthy bondmate. On Velara, bonding was a sacred ritual between two people that linked their minds and hearts. It was the way rulers secured peace and power. But no one wanted to bond with a blind and crippled princess. The queen tried to hide her disappointment, but even she started to believe her daughter was unfit. The council suggested a grand announcement. The royal family would offer Solara's hand in bonding to any prince or warrior from any world who dared to accept. But weeks passed, then months. No one came. Solara stayed in her quiet chambers, listening to the wind and the music of the forests, her heart heavy with loneliness. She wished anyone, could see past her broken body. But hope was fading. One day, the palace gates opened for a stranger. He was not tall, not glowing with power, and not from a great alien house. He was a human, a simple ambassador named Elias. He wore no armor, just a traveler's cloak, and carried a translator device. The court laughed when they saw him. A human? What can he do? They are weak, fragile, nothing like us. But Elias stood, calm, and smiled. He asked to meet the princess. The queen was curious and allowed it. Solara sat in her chamber when she heard the footsteps of a stranger. She expected another cruel noble or a mocking warrior. But when the door opened, the human spoke gently. "You must be Princess Solara," Elias said. Solara turned her clouded eyes to his voice. "And you must be here to laugh like the others." But Elias did not laugh. He stepped closer and said, "I heard your story. I wanted to see for myself if the tales were true. But I don't see a curse, I see a person." Solara's lips trembled. No one had ever said that to her before. Elias sat across from her. "In my world, we don't believe disability makes someone lesser. We believe strength comes from the mind, from the heart." Solara was silent, listening carefully. She heard honesty in his voice. She asked softly, "Why are you really here?" Elias smiled kindly. "Because I wanted to ask, what do you want, princess? Everyone talks about you, but no one asks you." That question struck deep. No one had ever asked her what she wanted. She whispered, "I want someone to see me. Not the blind girl, not the cripple. Just me." Elias nodded. "Then let me see you." Outside the chamber, the court watched with confusion and scorn. The nobles muttered, "This human is a fool. He doesn't know our ways. He won't survive the trials if he asks to bond with her." But Elias stood before the court and declared, "If your traditions require trials to prove myself, I will face them. Not because she is weak, but because she deserves respect." The hall fell silent. The queen, for the first time in years, looked at her daughter with curiosity. Solara, in her chamber, felt her heart beat faster. For the first time, someone stood for her, not out of pity, but out of choice. The council announced that Elias would face the bonding trials, the ancient tests of strength, mind, and heart. If he failed, he would die, like many before. If he succeeded, he could bond with Solara. Solara sat by her window that night, listening to the distant forest singing. In the wind, for the first time, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I am not alone anymore." And far across the palace, Elias looked at the night sky, knowing his journey had just begun. The next morning, the sky of Velara burned with soft golden light, but the palace was filled with cold stares. In the grand hall, the alien nobles gathered, curious to see if the strange human would dare to return. They whispered, their long cloaks brushing the floor. But then, the doors opened, and Elias walked in. His steps were steady, his face calm, though he was surrounded by beings stronger, taller, and more dangerous than him. He wore simple clothes, no weapons, no armor, just the courage in his eyes. On her throne, the queen raised an eyebrow. "You, human, still stand here? You were given a chance to leave with your life. Do you still claim to bond with my daughter?" Elias stood tall and answered, "Yes, I do. I seek Princess Solara, not for her throne or power, but for who she is. Let me meet her once again, not as a guest, but as a suitor." Gasps spread through the hall. No one had ever made such a request openly. The nobles laughed, voices sharp like knives. "Foolish human, you don't know our customs," one sneered. "She is blind, broken. Why would you lower yourself?" Another mocked. But Elias didn't flinch. His gaze was firm, his voice louder. "You all mock her because you only see her body. But she has a mind sharper than your swords. That's why you fear her. I don't." In her private chamber, Solara heard his words through the listening device connected to the hall. She pressed her hands to her chest, heart racing. No one had ever spoken for her like that. The queen, amused, agreed. "Very well, human. You wish to court the princess. You will face the bonding trials. If you succeed, you may bond with her. If you fail, your life is forfeit." Elias smiled. "I accept." Later, the guards led Elias to Solara's private chamber once again. The door opened, and Solara waited in silence, sitting by her window with her walking brace beside her. "I thought you would have left," she whispered. "I came back," Elias said softly, sitting before her. "I'm not leaving unless you tell me to." Solara tilted her head, her clouded eyes searching. "You're not afraid of me?" Elias chuckled gently. "Why would I fear someone who's been braver than anyone here?" Solara shook her head. "I am blind. My legs are weak. I can't even walk without help. Why fight for me?" Elias smiled warmly. "Because they only see your body. I see your strength. I see your loneliness. And I think we can be more than what they believe we are." Solara's lips parted in surprise. "You would bond with someone you barely know?" "I want to know you," Elias answered. "But if your ways demand I prove myself, I'll face it. I'm not here to save you. I'm here because I choose you." For a long time, Solara was quiet. No one had ever asked to know her. No one had ever chosen her. "I will help you," she finally said. "In these trials, strength alone won't save you. But if you trust me, I can guide you." Elias smiled. "I would be honored." And so their secret bond began, not yet official, but real. Through whispers, through plans, Solara told him of the trials ahead. There would be 3 great trials. The trial of strength, a brutal fight against the strongest. Alien warriors. The trial of shadows, a maze of illusions testing the mind and senses. The trial of hearts, where both must reveal their deepest truths before the elders. "If you pass them all," Solara said softly, "you will be allowed to bond with me." "And if I fail?" Elias asked. "Then they'll kill you," Solara whispered. Still, Elias did not back away. "Then I better win." Far beyond their room, the court still laughed, sure that the human would fail the first trial and die quickly. But in the night, in the quiet shadows, Solara whispered directions and secrets to Elias. Her world of sound, of feeling vibrations, of noticing the unseen, she gave all her knowledge to him. He listened, learning how to think like her. The palace slept, but in the princess's chamber, hope was awakening. Solara had never touched another before, but that night she reached out her hand blindly and felt Elias's hand take hers, warm and steady. "You are not alone anymore," Elias whispered. And for the first time, Solara smiled. Outside, the stars of Velara shone brighter, as if watching two lonely souls beginning a path no one had dared to walk. The sun had not yet risen, but the great arena of Velara already trembled with energy. Lanterns floated in the air, casting blue and purple light across the towering stone walls. Warriors, nobles, and common folk crowded the stands, all eager to see one thing: the human's death. No human had ever dared to enter the bonding trials, and none believed Elias would survive the first test. In their eyes, he was a fragile species, a soft-skinned fool with no claws, no fangs, no power. The only thing interesting about him was his stubbornness. But in the center of the arena, Elias stood calm, his eyes scanning the space, recalling every instruction Princess Solara had whispered to him the night before. He tightened his gloves, breathed slowly, and waited. Above in the royal balcony, Solara sat quietly, her sightless eyes staring forward, but her ears sharp. She listened to the crowd, their laughter, their bets on how fast Elias would fall. But she also listened to his heartbeat through the special device linked to her chamber, steady, unshaken, focused. She whispered to herself, "Don't fall. Please. Don't fall." Suddenly, the ground shook. The first warrior entered the arena. Towering alien with 4 arms, thick as tree trunks, and skin like armored stone. His name was Gorvek, a champion known for crushing opponents with his bare hands. The crowd cheered. "This will be quick," one noble said. "Too quick." "The human won't even scream," another laughed. The queen watched without emotion. She had seen many warriors die in these trials. This would be no different. The trial master raised his voice. "First trial, strength. Survive or die," the horn sounded. Gorvek roared and charged, his massive feet shaking the arena floor. Elias didn't move. He watched, remembering Solara's lessons. "Don't fight strength with strength," she had told him. "Use your ears. Listen to their steps, their breath. Every warrior leaves an opening." At the last second, Elias rolled to Kung. The side, Gorvak's massive fists slamming into the ground where he had stood. Dust flew up, but Elias was already moving, light on his feet. The crowd gasped. "Fast for a human," someone muttered. Gorvak roared again, swinging all 4 arms wildly. But Elias was smaller, quicker. He dodged, slid, even ducked under the giant's legs. Every time Gorvak tried to grab him, Elias used his environment, jumping off stones, sliding between strikes. Solara smiled faintly in her seat. "He listens," she whispered. But Gorvak was not just muscle, he was clever too. He feinted a swing, then caught Elias with his lower arms, squeezing tight. The crowd erupted in cheers. Gorvak laughed. "I'll crush your bones, little man." Elias felt his ribs straining, pain flashing through his body. His breath grew shallow. Then he remembered Solara's words. "If they catch you, distract them. Your mind is sharper than their fists." With his last strength, Elias reached into his pocket and crushed a small dust pouch, a trick he'd prepared. Earlier, a cloud of sharp, burning powder exploded into Gorvak's face. The giant howled, his eyes burning. His grip loosened just enough. Elias slammed his elbow into the warrior's throat and twisted free. He climbed up Gorvak's back like a cat, wrapping the remaining powder cloth around the alien's eyes. Then, with all his might, Elias drove a sharp stone into the nerve point at the back of Gorvak's neck, another tip Solara had told him about. With a final groan, Gorvega collapsed, his body thudding hard on the ground. The arena fell silent. No one had expected it. The trial master raised his hand. "The human ... wins the first trial," some cheered. Others whispered in disbelief. On her throne, the queen's eyes narrowed. She did not clap, But she watched the human with new curiosity. In her seat, Solara let out the breath she had been holding. A small, proud smile touched her lips. "You did it, Elias." But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the court, Lord Travak, a powerful noble, whispered to his allies, "This human is trouble. If he wins, the princess will have power, and we will have none." They plotted quietly, their eyes full of hatred. They would not let a human win all the trials, not if they could stop it. After the trial, Elias was taken to a recovery chamber. He was bruised, his ribs aching, but he smiled when he found a secret audio message waiting. It was Solara's voice. "You did well, Elias. I knew you would. But the next trial will be harder. You'll need not just strength, but trust in me. I'll guide you through the shadows." Elias smiled despite the pain. "Then guide me, princess. I'm ready." Outside, the stars of Velara sparkled. But in the darkness of the palace, dangerous eyes watched, already planning how to make sure the human would not live long enough to face the next trial. The next day, the palace sky was gray, as if the world itself held its breath. In the ancient courtyard of Velara, a strange structure stood, an enormous black maze that shimmered like glass, but swallowed all light inside. No one could see beyond its entrance. It was called the Trial of Shadows. Few had ever crossed it. Even the strongest warriors feared it, for it did not test the body but the mind. Inside, the maze whispered lies, twisted memories, and played cruel tricks. Many had entered brave but left broken or didn't return at all. Now, it was Elias's turn. As he stood before the entrance, his bruises still fresh from the first trial, he stared into the void-like passage. It felt alive, as if the darkness watched him back. Above, in the royal balcony, the queen watched closely. Nobles muttered among themselves. "This is where the human will fail," one sneered. "He won with tricks before, but his mind is weak," another whispered. But in her private seat, Princess Solara sat upright, listening carefully. She had given Elias everything she knew about this maze. Though blind, she had studied its patterns for years through sound, temperature, and vibrations others ignored. In his ear, a small communicator buzzed, her voice soft and clear. "Are you ready, Elias?" Elias smiled faintly. "Only if you're with me." "I'm here," Solara whispered. "Listen carefully to me, and ignore what the shadows show you. Trust my voice." Without hesitation, Elias stepped into the maze. At once, the air grew cold and heavy. The walls seemed to pulse, as if they were breathing. The floor felt uneven, and the light from outside was gone. Only darkness remained. Then the whispers began. "Elias... Go back... You are nothing here. You will die like the others... But Elias pressed forward, his hand brushing the wall, his ears straining for Solara's voice. "Step forward 5 paces, she instructed, then left. "There's a drop ahead." Elias obeyed, feeling the air shift. A pit was just beyond where he stood. Had he moved blindly, he would have fallen, but the maze wasn't done. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed around him, not Solara's but familiar. "Elias... It's your mother," the voice said sweetly. "Come home, son." Elias froze. His mother had died years ago, yet here was her voice, clear and loving. "You've suffered enough," the voice continued. "Leave this place. Wake up... His heart clenched, his steps slowing. But then, through the communicator, Solara's firm voice broke through. "Elias, that's not real. Keep walking forward. Don't listen." He shook his head, pushing forward. "Nice try, shadows," he muttered. Every few steps, the maze threw more illusions at him, friends, old memories, dead loved ones. But each time Solara guided him. "Stop, there's a spike trap. Crawl low to avoid it. Turn right, there's a cold breeze. It hides the false wall. Listen for the water drip. That's your next path." Her instructions were precise as If she could see the maze through sound alone. Meanwhile, the watching nobles were restless. How is he moving so well? Is someone helping him? Lord Travac, the same noble who despised Solara, frowned darkly. He's not doing this alone. The blind girl is aiding him. The queen said nothing, but her eyes narrowed. Something unusual was happening. Back in the maze, Elias reached a wide chamber. Here, the walls shimmered, and a figure stood ahead, his own reflection. You can't win, the reflection said. You're just human. Weak, she pities you. Elias stared at his copy, his hands clenching. But then Solara's voice came, warm and firm. Elias, that is not you. Don't fight it, ignore it. Remember who you are. Elias smiled slightly. I know who I am. Without looking at the reflection, he marched past. The false image screamed and vanished. Hours passed, but with every whisper, every lie, Elias kept moving one step at a time. Guided by SALAR. At last, a faint light appeared ahead, the maze's end. With a final deep breath, Elias stepped out of the darkness, blinking at the sudden brightness. The crowd was silent. He had made it. The trial master raised his hand. Elias of Earth has passed the trial of shadows. Slowly, the crowd erupted into applause, though many were still shocked. In her seat, Solara smiled proudly. She had never felt power before, but guiding him, it made her feel alive. The queen watched carefully, her mind heavy with thoughts. A blind girl guiding a human. Perhaps there is more to both of them than I thought. But Lord Travac clenched his fists. We must stop them before the last trial, or she will have power and we will have nothing. That night, as Elias rested, he received another message from Solara. You did it, Elias, but the final trial is soon, the trial of hearts. There, we must stand together. Only truth can win that. 1. Elias smiled, his body still aching, but his heart light. Then I'll be ready, princess. Together we'll win this. But in the shadows of the palace, danger stirred. Not everyone wanted them to succeed, and before the final trial, betrayal would strike. That night, the palace of Velara slept under a false peace. The stars above twinkled quietly, but deep within the palace walls, shadows gathered, not of nature, but of treachery. In a hidden chamber beneath the great halls, Lord Travac and his allies circled a dim fire. Their faces were grim, their voices sharp like blades. We cannot let the human win the last trial, Travac snarled. If he bonds with the princess, she will have a voice in the court, and that weak girl will rise above us. Another noble hissed. And with her sharp mind guiding him, who knows what power they will claim? No. We must end it. But the queen watches closely, another warned. If we strike openly, we'll be caught. Travac's lips curled into a smile. Then we don't strike openly. We strike when he is alone. Vulnerable. At that very moment, Elias sat in his guest chamber, tending to his bruises. His ribs still ached from the earlier battles, but his mind was clear. A soft sound came from the communicator, Solara's voice. Elias. I heard the court's whispers. Be careful tonight. I don't trust them. Elias chuckled softly. Neither do I, but don't worry, princess. I'll stay alert. But even as he spoke, silent figures slipped through the dark corridors, their steps silent as breath. They were assassins paid well by Travac, armed with poison-tipped blades meant to kill quietly, leaving no trace. As Elias set his communicator aside and laid down to rest, the door creaked open slightly. A shadow slipped inside. Yet, somewhere else, in her dark chamber, Solara stirred. Though blind, her hearing was sharp. She had trained herself to sense even the faintest sounds through the walls. And now, she heard footsteps that shouldn't be there. Her breath caught. Someone was inside Elias's room. Without hesitation, she grabbed her walking brace and slammed it against the floor thrice. Secret signal she had taught Elias in case of danger. In his room, Elias's eyes snapped open just in time to hear the faint knocks through the communicator. Without a thought, he rolled off his bed just as a dagger sliced through the pillow where his head had rested. The assassin hissed in frustration, lunging forward, but Elias was already moving. He grabbed a wooden stool and swung it hard, knocking the attacker back. Another shadow appeared, a second assassin. "Two of you?" Elias muttered. "You think that's enough?" But deep down, he knew he was outmatched. These were trained killers, and he was already wounded. Yet he remembered Solara's guidance. Use your ears, listen to every sound, every breath. Closing his eyes for a split second, Elias listened. The shuffling of feet, the swish of a blade, the sharp inhale before a strike. He dodged left, feeling the air shift. The assassin's blade missed by inches. Using his momentum, Elias grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it into the attacker's head. Still, the other came fast. A knife grazed Elias's arm, a sharp sting of pain. Blood trickled, but Elias gritted. His teeth. Suddenly, palace guards stormed in. Solara had already sent an alert through the Queen's security network. The assassins tried to flee, but the guards captured them swiftly. When the lights blazed, the Queen herself appeared, wearing her night robes, her eyes dark with anger. "Who dares break the sacred protection of a guest?" she demanded. The assassins caught, spat on the floor but remained silent. But then Elias stepped forward, holding his bleeding arm. "Check their weapons. The blades are poisoned." "They didn't come to scare me, they came to kill." The guards searched the attackers and confirmed the deadly poison. The Queen's gaze turned colder. "Who sent you?" The assassins refused to speak. But the Queen ordered their minds probed by the royal telepath. Within minutes, the truth emerged. Lord Trevak. Gasps filled the hallway. Trevak, summoned at once, was dragged before the Queen. His face was pale but defiant. "Explain yourself," the Queen demanded. Trevak sneered. "I did what was needed. That human, that blind princess, they threaten our ways." Silence followed. Everyone waited for the Queen's judgment. She stood tall, her voice sharp. "You sought to murder a challenger and dishonor the trials. You insult my daughter and the laws of Velara. Your titles are stripped. You are banished forever." Trevak shouted curses but was dragged away, his voice echoing down the halls. The Queen turned to Elias. "You are wounded, yet you live. This proves your will is strong." Elias bowed weakly. "I won't stop, Your Majesty. I made a promise to Solara." The Queen glanced at her daughter's chamber, thoughtful. Perhaps she had misjudged her child. Later that night, Elias sat in his room, his arm bandaged, the communicator in his hand. Solara's voice whispered through. "I heard everything. You survived." Elias chuckled. "Thanks to you, Princess. You woke me just in time." "You must rest," she whispered. "The final trial is close. It will not be easy." Elias smiled. "Let them come. I'm still standing." Outside, the night was quiet, but a storm was building within the palace. The final trial would soon begin, and both Elias and Solara knew. Their bond was now more than tradition. It was survival. At dawn, the sky of Velara was stained with deep reds and soft golds. But for Elias, the morning was heavy, not with pain from his wounds, but with the weight of what was coming. Today was the final test. The trial of hearts. Unlike the others, this trial was not about strength or cleverness. It was ancient and sacred. To win it, Elias and Solara would have to stand before the entire court and the Royal Ancestors' Council. Together, they had to open their minds and reveal their deepest truths without hiding, without lies. If their bond was honest, if their connection was pure, the ancient seers would declare it real. But if they lied or harbored doubt, the bond would be rejected and Elias would be exiled or worse. In her private chamber, Solara stood slowly, adjusting the brace on her leg. She touched her pale eyes, then smiled faintly. She had spent her life hidden in these rooms, but today she would stand before all of them. She was done hiding. A soft chime echoed in her room. The palace guards had come to escort her. Across the palace, Elias was ready. His body ached, his arm was still bandaged, but his heart beat steady. He knew this trial wasn't about fighting monsters or navigating mazes. It was about them. Him and Solara side by side. When the grand hall doors opened, the crowd turned silent. First, Solara entered, walking slowly but proudly, her head high despite her blindness. She carried no staff, no guide, only courage. Then Elias followed, his steps firm, his eyes never leaving Solara. When he reached her side, he smiled and whispered, "Ready, princess?" She nodded softly. "Yes, let them see us." On the throne, the queen watched quietly. Around her, the nobles waited, some curious, some disgusted. The royal seers stood at the center, their eyes glowing faintly with the power of the ancestors. The head seer raised his hand. "Step forward. Speak your truths. Show us the heart of your bond." A deep hum filled the room as the ceremony began. The seers extended their hands, and a soft blue light formed a circle around Elias and Solara. They had to speak now. Elias stepped forward first, his voice clear. "I am Elias of Earth, a human, a stranger to your world. I came here not to win power or glory. I came because I heard of a princess who was unwanted. Unseen." He glanced at Solara, smiling gently. "When I met her, I didn't see a broken girl. I saw someone lonely. Someone like me. My whole life, I was weaker, smaller, overlooked, but I survived. And when I saw her, I knew I had to stay. Not because she needed me, but because I needed her." The seers murmured softly, the light around them flickering. Then it was Solara's turn. She stepped forward, her pale eyes clouded, but her voice steady. "I am Solara of Velara. I was born blind, with weak legs, and for that, my people cast me aside, my own family. They loved me, but they never believed in me." Her voice grew stronger. Then came a human. Small, soft-skinned, yet unafraid to sit before me, speak to me, and ask me what I wanted. He did not pity me. He saw me. She paused, breathing deeply. "And I saw him not with my eyes, but with my heart. He is alone, just like me. But together, we are not lonely anymore." The blue light grew brighter. The seers stepped forward, eyes glowing deeper. "One final question," the head seer said. "What do you desire most from this bond? Speak now." Elias looked into Solara's face and spoke without hesitation. "I want her to be seen by her people. I want them to know she is not a burden. She is their future." Solara's voice followed, soft but sure. "And I want to never be alone again. With him, I feel seen. I feel alive." The hall was silent. No one dared speak. Suddenly, the blue light flared, surrounding Elias and Solara, lifting them gently into the air. The air shimmered with whispers, the voices of the ancestors. The bond is true. The hearts are open. The connection is pure. The seers smiled. The ancestors approve. The bond ... is complete. Cheers erupted in the hall, though some nobles stayed silent, bitter with defeat. On her throne, the queen finally smiled, truly smiled. She had doubted her daughter for too long. But now, she saw her not as weak, but as strong in ways no one else was. Elias reached out and took Solara's hand. She smiled shyly. "Did we really do it?" Elias chuckled. "We did, princess. We did." But even as the court celebrated, in the darkest corners of the palace, some still plotted. Not all would accept a human and a blind princess ruling together. Yet for now, under the bright lights of the palace, two outcasts stood together, not as weaklings, but as victors. And soon, their true journey would begin not just as bondmates, but as the future of Velara. The twin moons of Velara hung low in the night sky, bathing the world in soft silver light. The palace, once cold and distant, now echoed with music, laughter, and celebration. The bond between Elias and Princess Solara was now official, witnessed by the ancestors, blessed by the seers, and recognized by the queen herself. But for Elias and Solara, the real celebration wasn't in the grand halls. It was in the quiet garden behind the palace, where glowing flowers bloomed under moonlight. Here, away from the noise, they stood side by side, their hands gently linked. Solara smiled, her pale eyes turned up to the sky. "The stars feel brighter tonight," she whispered. Elias chuckled. "Maybe because for once, the universe isn't trying to kill me." She laughed softly, her voice light and free, a sound that had rarely escaped her lips before. "I never thought I'd survive the trials," Elias admitted. "When I first saw you, sitting alone, I didn't think I was worthy of you." Solara turned, her head toward his voice. "And I thought I was unworthy of anyone. But you you saw me." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind gently carrying the scent of the flowers. For two people who had been alone their entire lives, the warmth of this connection was everything. But peace never lasts forever. Inside the palace, the queen stood with her council. She knew some nobles still whispered against her daughter, displeased with a human bonding into the royal line. Lord Trevec's allies had vanished, but not their hatred. The queen raised her voice. "Let them whisper, let them plot. My daughter has proven herself, and the human. He's more Valeran in spirit than many of us." Yet deep down she worried. Change never came easy on Velara. There would be more challenges ahead both for Solara and Elias. Meanwhile, in the garden, Solara's voice turned serious. "They won't stop, Elias. Some will never accept us." Elias squeezed her hand. "Then let them come. I faced your strongest warriors, your mind-bending maze, and even assassins. I'm not going anywhere." "But this time," she whispered, "we face them together." Elias smiled. "Exactly, together." At that moment, the queen herself approached, her steps soft but full of presence. Both turned at her arrival. "Mother," Solara greeted, her voice respectful yet strong. The queen looked between the two, studying them not as pieces on a chessboard, but as something new, something powerful. "You've changed, Solara," the queen said gently. "You stand taller, not just with your brace, but in your heart." Solara smiled faintly. "Because someone finally stood with me." The queen nodded, her expression warm. "Then it is time the world sees you for who you are." She turned to Elias. "And you, human, what will you do now that you've bonded with a princess of Velara?" Elias grinned. "I'll help her change this world." The queen laughed softly. "Then you'll need strength, for changing this world is harder than any trial." But Elias stepped forward, confidence in his eyes. "Then let that be our next trial." With those words, a new dawn began, not just for Elias and Solara, but for all of Velara. A future where the blind princess was no longer a hidden shadow, but a symbol of strength. A future where a human, once seen as weak, now stood among alien royalty as an equal. Their story spread across the stars, of a princess born blind, of a human with no special powers, yet together, they defied tradition, shattered expectations, and forged a bond stronger than any blade. Years later, when people of many worlds spoke of them, they didn't talk about Solara's blindness or Elias's humanity. They spoke of two hearts that refused to be defined by weakness. They called them the princess who saw with her heart, and the human who fought with his soul. And under the stars of Velara, they ruled not with fear, but with love, respect, and the unbreakable bond that began when one human chose to see what no one else dared to.